Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, June 7th, 2024. Where's the year gone? Where's Disclosure happening? What's up with the Wall Street Journal? Yes, they are throwing some diss at the whole disclosure movement and their undercover investigation. Not really, but we'll get to that. And there's a lot of things going on here, friends. So before I get into it, let me go ahead and turn this music down a little bit and welcome in our audience. Who in the heck do we have out there? Let's take a look and see. All right, we've got Anjoan's here along with Amiga Rules. Good to see you, friends. Azrael Aries in the chat along with Ed Brown, Gunham Disclosure, JB, Fireflies here. We got Jared Rosenthal, John McLean's around, along with Kathy Kelly Burrow and those piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. King Bull's around along with Liberty Astro UK. We've got Maritime Unprepared in the chat along with Mr. Grimlock and Niles Guy. He apparently is our resident pitbull. Let's welcome in Paul Damon, Prism Films, Ronnie Deal, Sage Pup, Sam, Steve Hines, Super Unknown, the Chromosome Cowboys here, along with the Coin 405. Would you look at that? We've got Two Heads 666, Vern Dude, William Underwood, Woodrow Smith, and of course, Yellow Tommy Tanker, also known as Andy. Wow, we got a bunch of people out there in the chat, ready for a good show, I would think. Let's go ahead and jump into the studio and welcome in our dear friend. Where's that at so I can play it? Let's jump in and... Wait a minute, no, not that one. Here we go. Let's jump right in. Mike, Disclosure. How the hell are you doing? Sounds like you got a little cold today.
No, I still do from the other day. Yeah, this is really hitting me. So I'm congested and sneezing and, the usual. Mm-hmm. But we have an interesting show today, so I'll try to get through it. It'll be all right. It'll be fun.
It should be fun, my friend. We appreciate everyone from coming in, everyone in the back. Let's go ahead and get to it. Well, I would normally go ahead and start with the top story today, but we do have a breaking UFOs alert that just hit our desk. Yes, let me go ahead and bring this up if I can. Guest desktop. Here we go. Let me move this across so we can see a little bit better. This is coming to us from Askapole, our dear friend, Mr. Matt Lazo. Love you, Matt, for everything that you do here. Uh-oh. Where did that window go? I just had it right here. Don't you love it when you have all these monitors set up, Mike, and one gets popped off and it goes to the wrong place?
Yeah.
I just had it here, and I just went to go and move it, and it popped off the screen. And it's at the bottom of that one? No, it's not there. It should be. Let me, Jesus Christ. All right, let me get back to Brave Browser. Let's cancel. Let me go ahead and bring it up in another window here. I know. Gotta love it, my friends. All right, in a breaking news story for today, my friends, starting it off, we have a story coming in from Jim Himes. I didn't know anything about it. The HPSCI ranking member says of the FBI's UFO unit. How about that, Mike? Yet another member in the House of Representatives, I believe, who is from the House Permanent Select Intelligence Committee, which actually sits over the FBI, doesn't he, Mike?
Yeah, he does. That's the former job of Representative Mike Turner. He was in HPSCI as well, and he was very close with Jim Himes, who's on the other side of the aisle. He's a Democrat. Turner was a Republican.
But at that time, Turner was the head of the committee, but he's not the head anymore. He got decapitated.
Yes, he did, and rightfully so.
Yeah,
as we have been reporting since the first set of hearings with him. Yeah.
Well, let's get to.
He's out of a job, so yeah. Laszlo got to Jim Himes.
Yeah. let's get to it and see what he has to say really quick in this little soundbite. Here we go, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Living the dream. Are you aware of this UFO, UAP task force within the FBI?
No, I'm not.
Oh, really?
No, I'm not.
The FBI just gave a briefing.
Oh, really?
This unit to the UAP caucus secret task force, and they said it was actually more illuminating than Arrow. They were more open, and they had footage that Arrow has never
Do you
seen.
think they had access to Defense Department compartmented programs? Yeah. So obviously I can't comment because I don't know a thing about it. It's interesting because the FBI was in front of the committee yesterday asking for their intel budget, but I'll read up on it.
And this issue didn't come up?
It did not come up, no.
Figures. Thank you, sir.
You're the old guy who really brings it.
I know, sir. Sorry, not sorry. Thanks for listening to Ask a Poll.
There we go, Mike. No clue. Yet they're in charge of oversight. What are they overseeing, we have to ask.
Well, Laszlo told him that they were also asking at the meeting for funding, which he should have been aware of. Claims to have absolutely no knowledge of it. That really doesn't say much about him. Somebody's not on top of their job.
Yeah, but we're talking about Congress. We know how good they are at times.
Oh, it's complete chaos. One hand doesn't know what the other one's doing.
Oh, I'd have to agree, my friend. I'd have to agree. Well, at least, he didn't have much to say. Not having much to say, said a lot of things.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He's telling everybody how ignorant Congress is as a rule over things that are going on right under their nose.
Yeah. Absolutely. Who knew? Exactly. But Mike, we do have a super chat coming in from our dear friend Anonymous Rex. He says, apologies for the confusing details yesterday. That's when he had sent across something that looked like a Polaroid photo that turned out to be a recreation potentially of a Polaroid photo of a craft at Area 51. So appreciate it, Tim. But mistakes do happen, right, Mike?
Absolutely. Don't worry about it, Tim. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on.
It's not like you were in front of the House of Representatives and you held up a picture of an irrigation circle and said, look, it's a UFO.
Yep. Yeah. But don't take my word for it.
Even some of the best, that happens to everybody.
Good segue.
Oh, you better believe it. Speaking of which, yes, speaking of which, getting to our top story for today, which is, Pentagon admits UFO disinformation in a Wall Street Journal investigation. How about that, Mike?
No, I meant to segue with Lou. Don't we have?
Well, we're going to be getting to that. That's the top story. But in a rebuttal to this story, before we get to it, Lou Elizondo made a surprise appearance on News Nation to talk about this story already with his dear friend Chris Cuomo. Let me go ahead and get this up and let's watch it. Here we go, everybody. Here we go. 1 second. I'll get this set up. One more second here and we'll get this thing started. All right, here we go.
The other narrative is this, and it shows how far behind on this story so much of the media is. The Wall Street Journal releases what they call a bombshell story about how the U.S. government, it's this guy is calling the Wall Street Journal's story a bombshell, not the Wall Street Journal saying it themselves, that the U.S. government fabricated alien tech and allowed UFO rumors to fester in order to cover up their super secret tech. Now, we've been talking about this for years. This is an aspect. I want you to clarify what's real and not real here, because I see it as a 50-50. Does the U.S. government allow UFO stuff to cover some of their own tech and activities? Yes.
In fact, it has in the past. You're absolutely right.
But they have not fabricated everything that's supposedly alien technology. There's a lot of stuff they have no idea what it is.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, what you're referring to is back in the early days of the stealth program, what they used to call tacit blue and have blue programs back in the 70s and 80s, before we actually introduced the world to the fact that we had stealth technology. A lot of times we were testing this new technology over our test ranges like Area 51. And unfortunately, sometimes the civilian population would see this type of technology, and rather than correct the public and say, no, this is actually our technology, we were okay with allowing them to create their own narrative that it was some sort of unidentified flying object, UFO in the old vernacular. That's what we call denial and deception, also cover for action. It's not uncommon in the intelligence community. It's not uncommon in the classified world. The problem is if you do it too much when you have real UAP issues, then what you wind up doing is oversensitizing people to this story that everything is just U.S. tech, when the reality is it's absolutely not all U.S. tech.
Lou, thank you.
So there we go, Mike. Are we surprised?
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Yeah, it's typical.
At least Lou is trying to go out there and set the situation straight, my friend. Yeah,
Yep.
set the record straight.
Yeah, well, he's good at that. So, yeah, that was I think, a well-rounded explanation from Lou.
Oh, you better believe it, my friend. You better believe it. Let me go ahead and find the main story we're talking about here today. So today in the Wall Street Journal, they put out a piece called "The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology." So what they're trying to call out here is that this information coming from the Pentagon actually is any information. Actually, the Pentagon has put out this information, and basically it eclipses by this headline all the sightings of everything that have gone on with UFOs. This doesn't sound right. It sounds like, honestly, more of the Pentagon trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
They definitely are trying to really put stigma back on this topic, I believe. It's an overt attempt to do exactly that. I got to tell you, though, it's really been a while since we saw such an overt action coming from the Pentagon with a story like this. It's been a while, and I don't know why they would choose to do it now, this particular time. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially under the new administration. It's odd, to say the least, at this stage of the game, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. I would have to agree with you on that, my friend. It's one of those situations where there's got to be something happening, something getting ready to come out, or to go ahead and go counter to any claims that are happening. But apparently, let's get into this story. So the tiny Pentagon office had spent months investigating conspiracy theories about secret Washington UFO programs when it uncovered a shocking truth. At least one of those theories had been fueled by the Pentagon itself. So they're saying one of the theories, not all of them. The congressionally ordered probe took investigators. We're talking about the historical report here, everybody. Back to the 80s when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top secret site we're all aware of in the Nevada desert. Let me get a little bit bigger here. Here we go. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up on the walls, and into the local lore went the idea that the U.S. military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. But the colonel was on a mission. Almost sounds like a mission of disinformation, kind of like the mission that Rick Doty's been on in the past, Mike.
Officially for the Air Force, yeah. That's true. He was.
Yeah. The photos were doctored, and the now retired officer confessed to Pentagon investigators over 2 years ago, back in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on in Area 51. The Air Force was using the site to develop top-secret stealth fighters viewed as critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried the program might get exposed if locals somehow glimpsed of a test flight. Let's say the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world. Better they believe it came from Andromeda. Just I have to go ahead and reflect on this statement here, Mike. If you remember and you go back to the situation that happened with the UFOs that were shot down. First one over Dead Horse, Alaska. Then we had the next one over the Yukon in Canada. And the third one was down over Lake Huron. Coming out of that situation, we had then Senator Mark Rubio, who's now our Secretary of State, said, I would almost have to hope what we're dealing with here is aliens, because if it was truly from Russia or China, we've got a big problem, don't we?
Yeah, we better learn how to start speaking Russian or Chinese pretty fast.
Yep.
It was a good point.
Absolutely. So the episode reported now for the first time was just a series of discoveries that the Pentagon made as it investigated decades of claims that Washington was hiding what it knew about extraterrestrial life. The efforts culminated in a report released last year by the Defense Department that found allegations of a government cover-up to be baseless. Now, Mike, I know you've written a tweet on this. We could go over your tweet afterwards, but if you want to chime in with pieces from the heavy, hard-hitting story you wrote on X, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So it seems to me that what they're trying to do is, because they know the public is looking for secret government program
right,
that is involved with legacy crash retrieval and reverse engineering. Well, they decided that they're going to give the public what it's looking for, but instead of giving them exactly that, they're coming up with this cock and bull story and saying, oh, it was actually disinformation that we were putting out there. They're trying to, like you said, put the genie back in the bottle.
I wonder if this is in reflection to what Matthew Brown brought out recently, an Immaculate Constellation, because they said all the documents were included within a training program or something.
Yes. He said that he found Immaculate Constellation in a War Games brief that had the Special Access Program material inside of it. And that's how he discovered the Immaculate Constellation program. Yeah. Entirely by accident. So they're trying to say that, oh, well, it's possible that we put it there on purpose and it's not real.
Yeah.
False.
Yeah, if we can, absolutely. It's, when you have someone like Susan Goff, who's been in the Department of Defense for, 16 years now, Mike?
Yes, sir. 16 years. She has managed to survive and keep her job through 4 presidencies. She is the single longest-serving spokesperson for the United States government in American history.
Yeah.
And considering how partisan Washington is, anytime there's a spokesperson out there, like if you remember Sean Spicer, their duration doesn't usually last from one administration to the next. Right. So how she was able to manage that is really interesting, I think, in itself. It's like it's its own story as far as what role she has been serving on behalf of the government this entire time.
Yeah.
What exactly has she been doing?
I don't know, but that is definitely not the program that I want to be digging through the cobwebs of, Mike.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah. If we could, Corporal Abe, you have your hand up, my friend.
Yeah, I just posted a link in the back chat titled Trump's Task Force on Drones Step in the Right Direction from Lou Elizondo, Chris Cuomo interview. And I want to get your, Mike, thoughts, opinions, anybody in the audience as well on that. Not sure. I got here kind of late if you guys had already talked about it.
No, we're talking about it. We just had Lou's video clip we had just played a minute ago. It's something we can get to in later in the program, sir.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Thank you. So let's get back to this story as well. All right, Mike. In fact, the Wall Street Journal investigation reveals the report itself amounted to a cover-up, but not in the way the UFO conspiracy industry would have them believe. Wow, Mike, they're actually calling us out as an industry now. That's a new low.
It is. It really is.
Or are they talking about the grifters out there like Greer and such?
No, they're actually talking about people who believe that the UFO topic is real and that we may not be alone on this earth. That's what they're taking a shot at.
Oh, yeah. Sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good.
Put our head back in the sand again. So the public disclosure left out the truth behind some of the foundational myths about UFOs, where the Pentagon itself sometimes deliberately fanned the flames on what amounted to a U.S. government targeting its own citizens with disinformation. But isn't that Susan Goff's job?
That's her background.
Yeah.
When she was a colonel in the U.S. Army, she
Yeah.
specialized in psychological operations. So,
Yeah.
this is what she does best.
Yeah. So at the same time, the very nature of Pentagon operations, an opaque bureaucracy that kept secret programs embedded within secret programs, cloaked in uncover stories, created a fertile ground for the myths to spread. My gosh, this is definitely a hit piece, my friend.
How could it not be? They're shitting over anybody who was credible and stepped forward to tell with their knowledge of firsthand experiences. They're dismissing that out of hand, which is shameful.
Yeah. So these findings represent a stunning new twist in the story of America's cultural obsession with UFOs and the decades after the 1938 broadcast of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds spread panic throughout the country. Speculation about alien visitors remained largely the province of supermarket tabloids, Hollywood blockbusters, and costume conferences in Las Vegas. Most recently, things took an ominous turn when a handful of former Pentagon officials went public with allegations of a government program to exploit our extraterrestrial technology and hide it from Americans. Those claims led to the Pentagon's investigation. Well, hold on a second here. They're saying an ominous turn. Okay, I get it. I guess you could say it's an ominous turn, Mike, that potentially the government has been covering this stuff up. But it seems to be more, it's a lot of trust me, bro, but hopefully they'll be bringing the facts out on this sooner than later.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's all trust me, bro. In the case of David Grush, who testified under oath, if any of the statements that he made were false, he would be serving time in a federal penitentiary right now.
When is the last time you saw anybody testify under oath to Congress who didn't tell the truth, carted away? Let's just be honest. Not once.
No, that's true.
So that's always, and that's always something that could potentially go on. But before we get too far, Ed Brown, you have your hand up.
Well, I was just listening to that report that you read, Thomas, and it strikes me humorous in that it seems like throughout the last 50 years or so, whenever we get too close to discovering a real secret aircraft that they're trying to hide, they say it's a UFO. And every time we get too close to discovering a UFO, they say it's a secret airplane. It seems to go back and forth. I don't know if you picked that up or not. So I guess the question is, what are they trying to say in this article? Are they trying to say that we do have a secret airplane that we're not telling you about, or are they trying to say you're getting too close to UFOs? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, kind of. I'll answer that first, then Mike can jump into it. My personal take on it is, oh boy. At this point, they're trying to say, there are no such thing as UFOs. Everything you've been seeing so far, friends, has been nothing but the military playing games against the citizens of the United States of America, or the world for that matter, if not people within the military themselves to keep them quiet. Mike, what are your thoughts?
If that's true, Thomas, then what is the urgent situation now that they have to say that? Why do they have to say there's no UFOs now? Meaning, are we getting close to actually discovering something that they don't want us to discover?
Well, in my opinion, I think that what they're trying to do is there has been too much movement on this subject for the public. With the testimony that's taken place, with the UAP public hearings, with the whistleblowers that have done interviews and discussed what they know. This seems to me to be an intelligence operation to try to provide answers that the government wants the public to see, not what actually has been coming out. And this is how they're going about doing that. They're trying to change the narrative to having people be more skeptical and doubtful of the claims that have been made so far. And this is the story that they're using to put that out there to create doubt. That's what it seems like to me, Ed.
Well, I think you're right, Mike. The one thing I think we've concluded as we go back and forth on these is whatever the government is trying to tell us is probably not the right answer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that 100%, Ed.
Well, you look at the situation, too. The day after Roswell, the National Security Act was introduced. 3 days later, it was passed. There's no coincidence in that. That's when we also got the Air Force, but we also got the CIA, Mike.
And the National Security Act. Yeah, we got all of those things bundled in together.
Yeah,
which is Like the government trying to get control over this topic.
Yeah.
I mean, only because if you look at it, if you think about it for a second, if this story were to break, it's the largest story in human history, bar none.
Yeah.
So, of course, they would rally the troops and do everything to cover this up.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And as Lewis said in the past, this would be the biggest scandal to rock the United States of America since we put ourselves in control of our destiny back in 1776, Mike.
That's true. Now I gotta play devil's advocate real quick on behalf of David Grush. It isn't just that he testified under oath. He also went to the Intelligence Community's Inspector General's office, who conducted an investigation for his claims. And when they went and followed through with the investigation, they notified Congress that they find his claims to be credible and urgent. So it isn't just somebody going up there saying, "Trust me, bro." It was verified.
Right. But the whole thing within Trust Me, Bro, Mike, is we haven't had any hard evidence. No pictures, nothing, no real videos, no real actual if you want to call it, biologics or crash materials has been exposed. So that's where the whole Trust Me, Bro thing comes from. We want to see something real.
I get it, and I agree with you completely, but here's the thing. What's preventing all that from coming out? Oh, I know. What is it you always say? We live in the national security states of America?
Yeah, that's what happened. Actually, the national security state of America is where we're at.
Yeah, that's right.
They took away rights. They changed our government fundamentally to ability to take stuff and cover anything up without going in front of a judge, without doing anything and just saying, sorry, this is a matter of national security. Literally, it's a police state, Mike.
I know. It's like they took the national security, they took the U.S. Constitution and they used the excuse of national security to wipe their ass with it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why we haven't had any real protections or any real truth coming out since then. And it's still ongoing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And this piece from the Wall Street Journal and the excuse that they're coming up with, that this is just to cover secret weapons development from the United States, not exactly original. The government has been using excuses like this for decades now, many decades. They're not even original with what they're trying to do.
They're not.
It's like they're not even trying to put in a real effort. They're taking a hack approach to trying to cover this up.
As Kelly Broughton says in the audience, they've overclassified everything. Now, this is something that actually was brought forth by our last Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, Avril Haines. When she came into office, she pointed out and said, yes, our intelligence communities are being crippled by the overclassification of everything. And she wanted to start with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the same agency that was giving briefings on a regular basis to the president, Trump, before even back in the day. And that's where there was a lot of treasure troves of information that was out there within regards to the UFOs that are here on our planet. Now, she was shut down by career bureaucrats who got in her way, refused to back down, Mike, for the main reason that they saw her as a temporary person who would come and go, and they weren't going to change how they're doing anything for someone who was just going to be here, who's basically a temporary employee.
Right, which is what's been going on for 80 years now.
Yeah.
They've kept this a secret.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. That's a good point.
It's a sad situation. Now, looking here, night view of the extraterrestrial highway near Area 51. Great site just to set the mood for this. Now, remember, this account is based on interviews with over 24 current and former U.S. officials, scientists, and military contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents, recordings, emails, and text messages. All of them, my guess, Mike, are one-sided in this topic.
Oh, they absolutely are. They're going to double down on their position that this is really just a cover for secret technology development, like they've always done.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Not going to provide any evidence to support that. Are we going to hear about the weapons that they were working on? No.
Oh, hell no.
Right.
So let's continue on.
Yes.
So this account is based, and with officials and contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents. At times, as with the deception of around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security. And this isn't just about UFO myths taking root, Mike. This is actually about actively spreading disinformation to the people of the United States of America, which I think it was against the law at that time, wasn't it?
It still is. And they didn't just do that for the people of the United States of America. As we get into the specifics of this article, it's going to include that they did it to the military personnel serving under them, which that is also illegal.
Yeah.
Which surprised me when that was in the article, why they would admit something like that publicly. It's a crime.
Yeah. But it's in the interest of national security, and as national security goes, Mike, they can get away with whatever they want.
I don't think national security extends directly to committing criminal acts against their own armed services personnel. I don't think that they have that kind of leeway. I think they're probably banking on that for this to be prosecuted, it would have to come from the top down, and the current president would have to instruct the Department of Justice to prosecute the people who were responsible for this. And I think with the climate being what it is today, and we haven't gotten anything that was promised out of the current administration about this topic, I don't think they have any fear of being prosecuted.
But you're talking about the same government, the same executive branch, although we have changed out the sheets. It's still the same bed that we've got to deal with here. The problem is that our current president doesn't seem to be showing any signs of the willingness that he projected during the last election cycle to go ahead and say, yes, I'd bring out the truth. But look at this. We're in June 7th. We're almost 6 months into the Trump presidency, and we haven't gotten shit.
No, not a damn thing. And, the names and the faces seem to change, but nothing else does. The story stays the same.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing. It shouldn't be like that.
Oh, you're telling me, my friend. You're telling me. All right, I'll bring that up in a second. Let's go ahead and continue on with the story. So, at times, as with the deception around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security, for instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerabilities in the system protecting nuclear installations. Mike, don't tell me they're going to go there.
Oh, yeah, they're going to go there.
Oh, they're going after frickin' retired Robert Salas.
Well, the time frame, it doesn't quite line up with when he was on active duty. And
I know.
The story is claiming.
Yeah, but it sounds like it could be, let's dig more into this article, but it could be a foreshadowing of what the shit they're going to try and make us believe next. So stories tended to take on a life of their own, such as a 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. And one long-running practice was more like fraternity hazing ritual that spun out of control. The purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. You know what they're talking about there, Mike, don't you? They're talking about the arts parts.
Yes.
That Tom DeLonge went and sold to the Army for, if you want to call it, analysis in the Michigan lab. And of course, they came back and said nothing spectacular here. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Nothing to see here. I even think Sean Kirkpatrick also tested some of those pieces and released a report when he was in Running Arrow that we covered and claimed the same thing. They found nothing anomalous about that material, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, my God. What a mess. But they're trying to walk everything back. Again, they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle. Good luck. And so investigators are still trying to determine whether the spread of disinformation was the act of local commanders and officers or a more centralized institutional program. That sounds like a good point for a survey, Mike. I'd like to see where the audience takes us on this one. Let me go ahead and start a poll. And was the info from? Oh wait, okay. The Disinfo was from. All right, here we go. Is it going to let me do it? No. Let's go ahead and do it. All right, we've got a poll up, my friends. Our first poll today. Go ahead. This is your opportunity to go ahead and tell us what you think, where this could go. Let me go ahead and saying the Disinfo was from local commanders or the Pentagon / executive branch. Let me go ahead and bring this up and get the logo. Hey, Google, set a timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds, please.
Sure. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
The timer is set. I know you have your hand up to talk about something else, but I'll ask you first. Sergeant Daniel, what are your thoughts? Was the Disinfo coming from local commanders or the Pentagon / executive branch?
Definitely from the Pentagon, absolutely. I think there's truth in every situation, and I think that I'm sure it happened. Some kind of hazing thing happened where they have documentation to substantiate it, but it doesn't give them the right to hide the whole thing.
No, not at all, Mike.
I'm open to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Would you look at the results, though, so far, coming from our audience with 52 votes in? 6% of our audience is saying local commanders, where 95% of our audience, that's a good one, my friends. 93% of our audience is saying Pentagon / executive branch. Mike, I think our audience gets it.
Well, that's because our audience is not stupid, Thomas.
Yeah. Exactly. Come on, folks. You got 25 seconds left to vote, with just 58 votes in. I think, I could actually go ahead and call this early, but I'll give our audience another 18 seconds to go ahead and finish off their voting. But if you feel it's the Pentagon executive branch or local commanders, come on, people, go ahead and vote. Would love to hear what you guys think. All right, we just have 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Kill the timer. Take a screenshot, and let's go ahead and end the poll. How about that? Our audience has spoken with the uh-oh. The kids have spoken.
Yes, they have.
All right, here we go. Final stats. 7% of our audience with 61 votes in says yes. It's some local commanders, and 93% of our audience, and I think they have gotten the idea of who's been in charge of this cover-up. So let's go ahead and continue. Okay, let's go ahead. The Pentagon admitted key facts in the public version of the 2024 historical report that could have helped put some UFO rumors to rest, both to protect classified secrets and to avoid embarrassment, the journal investigation found. The Air Force in particular pushed to admit some details it believed could jeopardize secret programs and damage careers. What? Because they found out they were lying? Because they had their leadership going ahead and telling them to do so? It's not their fault. They're just following orders. And you know what? And if the truth did come out, they would not go ahead and lose their retirement. So bring out the truth is what I say. The lack of full transparency is only given more fuel to conspiracy theories. Members of Congress have formed a UAP caucus composed mainly of Republicans. Ooh. To examine unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, in bureaucratic speak. Mike, why do you think they had to go ahead and say composed mainly of Republicans?
It sounds a lot like partisan politics to me.
Yeah.
Whoever was behind this seems to be taking shots at the other side. What do you think, Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. That's why we've always said, Mike, this is a bipartisan effort. And I have often criticized different things that even happened in the task force to declassify national secrets that we have out there, head up by Anna Polina Luna. All the things that have been going on with regards to UFOs have only included the Republicans because it sounds like the Democrats potentially just aren't interested.
No. It used to be a bipartisan effort when Grush testified back in 23 in July. We covered that. But now it's really divided to a point where they can't function at all.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Overly divided, I'd say, Mike. Overly divided.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So to examine. All right. So in bureaucratic speak, the caucus has demanded the intelligence community disclose which agencies are involved within the crash retrieval programs. But it's not just crash retrieval, Mike. It's a crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs. Because here's the thing, what the Wall Street Journal isn't saying. If this stuff actually didn't exist, the DOD wouldn't be working so hard to keep it covered up, would they, Mike?
No, if it wasn't real, they wouldn't have to put any effort into this at all, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And here comes the part we're looking for, Mike. MAGA skepticism about the deep state further feeds the notion that the government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. But come on, the deep state was born in 1947 with the National Security Act. Let's be honest about it. It's not a party thing. It's a presidential thing.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
And if you want to get technical, Harry S. Truman, who was president at the time, was a Democrat. So this is where it all began, from the Democratic side of the aisle, not the Republican.
Oh, exactly. And it comes down to the people who wants big government versus who doesn't want big government. Well, I guess it's the people who don't want big government in control of things, which are the Republicans who are fighting back against it. So let's just leave that behind us and move on, because I'm sure I don't mean to piss anybody off. We're just covering the facts, right, Mike?
Absolutely. We are apolitical. We don't go to one side of the aisle or the other politically. We just cover the news and report on it evenly and fairly.
And that's why I say, Trump, bring out the fucking truth. Stop battling with Elon and everybody else, and just let us know what the hell's going on, period. We've had the promises made. Now fucking keep your promises. So let's get on to this. At a November hearing of two House Oversight subcommittees, Representative Nancy Mace, who she's a favorite here on Disclosure tonight, Republican from South Carolina, cast doubt on the Pentagon's report. I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that it doesn't add up, she said. Yeah, it doesn't, my girl. That's a fact. So let's get into this next one. Stupid enough? Oh, no. They must be talking about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. Yes, they are. Sean Kirkpatrick, a precise, bespectacled scientist who once spent years studying the vibrations in laser crystals, was nearing retirement from the government service when he received a phone call that would change his life. By 2022, he had ascended to the chief scientist at the Missile and Space Intelligence Center at the Redstone Arsenal near Huntsville, Alabama, as he sat at his desk at 6:30 one morning, drinking a coffee and skimming through the intelligence reports that had come in overnight. His Tannenberg desk phone rang, essentially a classified version of FaceTime. Ooh. It was the deputy undersecretary from the Pentagon who was putting on a tie as he told Kirkpatrick about the new congressional office ordered the department to set up and examine UAP. The undersecretary and I put together a short list of who could do it, and you're on top, Sean, the office relayed, adding that they had settled on Kirkpatrick because he had both a scientific background and had built a half dozen organizations within the intelligence community. Yes, he's someone from the IC. And I think the good thing about what Sean Kirkpatrick has said before, Mike, one of his most memorable statements, I believe it was like, based on my history, the American people should expect me to lie when I talk to them, right?
Oh, he did. He absolutely said that. Like he was proud of it.
Oh.
It's like he's a James Bond wannabe.
Oh, there we go. Here he is walking in the woods. Where are his Guido suit with the gold buttons.
Oh, yeah, his
James Gotti suit.
Mobster, yeah,
yeah.
The James Gotti, yeah. The Don, yeah, he wants to be looking like a gangster.
Yeah, exactly. Is that the real reason Kirkpatrick countered? Or am I the only one stupid enough to say yes? Well, yes, Kirkpatrick, you are stupid, and you did say yes, so let's leave that and move forward. In short order, Kirkpatrick and the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, you got it up and running. Just the latest in an alphabet soup of special government projects set up to study UFOs stretching back more than half a century. ARO, as it's known, operated out of an unmarked office near the Pentagon with a few dozen staffers and a classified budget. Gotta wonder, Mike, why do you think they classify the budget? Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's either too little or too much. They're covering something up that they want the public to know about.
I think it's too little.
It could be. Which means if they were given a shoestring budget, they're not able to really operate and do much of anything.
Yeah, that's right, my friend. So let's move on with this. The mission fell into two buckets. Shit and more shit. One was to collect data on sightings, particularly around military installations, and assess whether they could be explained by earthly technology. Amid growing public attention, the number of such reports has skyrocketed in recent years to 757 in the 12 months after May 2023, from between 144 between. So yeah, they've more than quadrupled. ARO linked most of the incidents to balloons, birds, and other proliferation of drones cluttering the skies. But most importantly, John Kozlowski came out a couple days ago. He said, yeah, there's a small percentage of these that no matter how we try to do it, we can't resolve it. So let's say they're talking about 1,000 reports here, Mike. We're talking somewhere between 50 and 100 of these reports that can't be resolved. That's a decent number.
It is, especially since they were tasked to be able to look into these.
Yeah.
And like you pointed out previously, if people take a good look at ARO's mandate, their mission statement, they were never put into being to give prosaic explanations of the matters that for the majority of the time, that's all they've done. That's not what their mission was. They were supposed to look at the things that can't be explained, right?
Right. And as soon as they figure out something that could be explained, they're supposed to take it, move it off their desk, give it to somebody else, and to focus on the non-prosaic sightings.
Exactly.
Which would be that small percentage of stuff they can't figure out, and to try and figure it out. More importantly, it'd be wonderful to get a list of all the things that they identified that those things could not be. Well, it's not this, it's not this, it's not all these different things. Let's see what that list is.
Right. Well, we'll never see that.
No, of course not. So many pilots' accounts of floating orbs were actually reflections from the sun, from Starlink satellites. You gotta be fucking kidding me, investigators found. They are still examining whether some unexplained events could be foreign technologies, such as Chinese aircraft using next-generation cloaking methods to distort their appearance.
That's another bold statement that they're making.
Yeah. This is ARO, and that is Sean Kirkpatrick. So, Andy, you have your hand up, my friend?
Yeah, that comment just made me laugh. I'm sorry, but if that's true, then I'm sorry to all your American viewers and you guys. You're screwed, aren't you? If China's using next generation cloaking devices, yeah, then be prepared to all learn Chinese.
Yeah, we're screwed. The world is screwed, for that matter.
Yeah, obviously your taxes are not being well spent on the military, are they? So, but all of this that I'm hearing here, it really, really strikes me as absolute. You know, they're panicking. I think we're getting closer and closer to the truth day by day. They keep throwing these things out, and they're scrambling now. They're really desperate. They're desperate to put, as you say, the toothpaste back in the tube. Yeah, it's almost comical. If it wasn't so serious, it would be such a comical farce. just, yeah.
Yeah. For people like us who are familiar with it and get it, we see it, but we got to remember the general public doesn't have a big exposure to a lot of information. Now, last week there was rumor that there was going to be a big story coming out this weekend that would then hit the major mass media coming early next week, and I believe this is that story.
Yeah, it may well be, and I think that what they're working on is that they're thinking that the American public are completely stupid, and I don't think people are. I think they're intelligent enough to make their own minds up on this subject, and we've got so many viewers here, and over the years, I really think that they're thinking people are absolutely dumb, and there will be people who go along with this and question it without a doubt. But I think an awful lot more people are waking up. We've had all of the people who were affected by the drones that we had going on over in your part of the world at the beginning of the year, and I think there are more and more people now are actually opening their eyes and maybe even looking up to the skies, as you say. So I think they're getting desperate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to agree with you. Let's go ahead and move on with the story a little bit. Yeah, it's a sad situation for where we're at, but we just have to come together as a community, talk about these things when it's out there. More importantly, educate our friends who may not have the in-depth knowledge we all have. So let's get into this a little bit more. The office that found seemingly inexplicable events weren't so strange after all. A 2015 video appeared to show a spherical buzzing object pass a jet fighter at almost impossible speed. Oh my gosh, dude. The pilot can be heard saying in the video, laughing, but later the investigators determined there was not much to see. But it wasn't just that. I think they're talking about either the go fast or the gimbal. And it's like, oh my God, look, there's a whole fleet of them. Not just one, but a whole fleet. So again, they're trying to take this information and, twist it around on the public. Sergeant Daniel, you have your hand up?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it's a slanted piece. You don't hear the other side. You don't hear any of the evidence from the other side. You only hear what they can, surmise. They're answering some of the questions, like the Robert Salas part I heard earlier, and that's just absolutely a big crock of shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were going to get to that or not, and maybe I'm just coming up on it, but basically they said that they somehow snuck onto the missile silo and put an object there that shut off the. No way. There's no way, and I'd like to hear Robert Salas come out and say, give his opinion on that nonsense.
Yeah.
I think exactly what it is. It's just absolute nonsense. But the problem is there's probably some truth in there. They can probably substantiate some of the bullshit that they're spewing, because they do have, like I said, someone hazing. They have that documentation, but they're just not telling you the whole side or the others.
I got you, my friend. It's like, how do we call them out?
Bullshit artist.
You better believe it. Just so you know, Mike, you're fine back. All right, so we got that.
Yeah. No, he's up on the screen.
Yeah.
Right now behind you, the bullshit.
Oh, absolutely. So whatever the object was, the camera angle and relative speed of the jet had made it appear it was going much faster than it was. But you know what, Mike? We've got the video where we've got a UFO going about between 11,000 and 14,000 miles per hour, dive bombing a jet fighter over Malta. And there's no mistaking for what the hell that was, because it sure wasn't a bug. It wasn't anything else. There was a direct intentional maneuver by the aircraft to basically, show off their technologies compared to what humans can actually handle. But I digress. Let's go ahead and continue on. RO's second mission proved to be more peculiar. It was to review historical records going back all the way to 1945 to assess the claims made by dozens of former military employees that Washington operated a secret program to harvest alien technology. Congress granted the office unprecedented access to America's most highly classified programs to allow Kirkpatrick's team to run the stories to the ground. Mike, I need to bring in on this one. I think this was disclosed earlier in the week that back in the 80s, when the government was going to a digital system, they actually destroyed Majority of the records going back to 1945 with regards to UAP because they didn't deem it necessary and they just shredded the docs.
They did. They dumped a boatload of information that they were going to do a digital transformation of the legacy records, and they just shredded it. Everything got destroyed.
Yeah.
So sounds like a cover-up to me, Thomas.
Either that or just contractors who didn't give a damn about what the hell they were doing except wanting to go home at the end of the day because it's Friday.
Could be.
Yeah.
But with a topic like this, I think it was a little bit more premeditated.
Yeah, I'd probably say so. Yeah, don't save anything over in there. It's not worth it, no matter what. So as Kirkpatrick pursued his investigation, he started to uncover a hall of mirrors within the Pentagon, cloaked in official and non-official cover. At one level, the secrecy was understandable. The U.S., after all, had been locked in an existential battle with the Soviet Union for decades, each side determined to win the upper hand in the race for more and more exotic weapons. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of his obsession with the secrecy verged on the farcical. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier and was warned that if he ever repeated the secret, he could be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by other men. What the hell? Other men who had never spoken the matter, even with their spouses. It turned out that these witnesses had been victims of a bizarre hazing ritual. For decades, certain new commanders of the Air Force's most classified programs, as part of their induction briefings, would be handed a piece of paper with a photo that looked like a flying saucer. The craft was described as an anti-gravity maneuvering vehicle. Mike, they're trying to go ahead and say this was nothing. I don't believe this was hazing, honestly. It sounds like a cover-up to me.
It is. It is disinformation about disinformation that they're trying to convince the public was real and what was actually going on.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the bottle.
Oh, what the fuck is wrong with this? Why is my scrolling left or right, up or down, going left or right at this point? Give me a second here. Oh, I know why. Hold on. I have a husky on the keyboard. I'll be right back, Mike.
That'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's just amazing that they're able to get away with this shit, and they never stop. They're always trying to put the wool over the public's eyes, and when they have information that's coming out publicly that's true, they want to counter it, and they come out with horse shit like this to cast doubt in everybody about what they're hearing. That's true.
Oh, gosh, Mike. Actually, it was Moose on the keyboard, but I saw the recliner rocking, and I knew what was going on. He was laying on the control key. The officers were told the program they were joining, dubbed Yankee Blue, was a part of the efforts to reverse engineer the technology on the craft. They were told never to mention it again. Many never learned it was faked. Kirkpatrick found the practice had begun decades before and appeared to continue still. The Defense Secretary's office sent out a memo across the service in the spring of 2023, ordering the practice to stop immediately. But the damage was already done. Investigators are still trying to determine why officers had misled subordinates, whether as some type of loyalty test or a more deliberate attempt to deceive, or maybe something else. After that 2023 discovery, Kirkpatrick's deputy briefed President Joe Biden's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, who was stunned. This could be the basis for the persistent belief that the U.S. has an alien program that we've concealed from the American people. Haines wanted to know, according to the people familiar with the matter, how extensive as it was. It's interesting, Mike, that they're going to the head of the ODNI, right?
Right.
Why isn't this being brought up with Pentagon leadership? ODNI has no authority over the Pentagon.
That's a very good question.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. But then again, look, if anything coming out of Kirkpatrick's mouth, it's going to be questionable at the very least. That's what I think.
Yep.
And this is all coming from Kirkpatrick. So he, before he stepped down in 23, he was uncovering all of these deception operations that were being conducted over decades. But he never spoke publicly about it. Plus, Arrow had to release a public report, and none of this was in it, ever. So if he really discovered this and it was true, he should have brought it out forward to the public, and he never did.
He didn't. He had the opportunity to, but he never did. Gee, right. I wonder why. Something smells fishy with this whole piece, Mike.
It does. Every aspect of it.
Yeah. Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually going to commend Kirkpatrick for his hard work on this. You know, he finally actually did something right at the end of his tenure. I'm being sarcastic there, by the way. Yeah, what an absolute schmuck. What a complete and utter joke. Good riddance. Unfortunately, the Kozlowski, who's taken over, I don't think, unfortunately, he's quite up to the par of Kirkpatrick. Yeah, he's still not great, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess. And honestly, even if Elizondo got put into that post, Andy, he would still be handicapped. He still wouldn't be able to say what he needed to, for the main reason that everything that's going on from Kozlowski or Kirkpatrick, they're following the direction of their leadership. They're not doing it on their own.
Yeah, you know, I've got no doubt, you know, they're both probably, actually, if you met them in person, pretty decent people, but they're installed in those positions to do a job. And they're actually doing a very good job. They're doing exactly what they're being ordered to do. So, you know, I'm no friend of theirs whatsoever, anybody out there listening, but, you know, they're doing what they're employed to do. So, you know, yeah, they may look like a, you know, pair of asses, as in the donkey fight at the moment, but yeah. And I'm not sticking up for them at all, but they are doing what they're employed to do. And unfortunately, Kozlowski goes, we'll get somebody else who's going to do exactly the same. These people, you know, they're put in these positions for the exact reason of what they're doing. So we're never ever going to get any disclosure from Arrow, from whatever, you know, unit or whoever they decide to bring up. You know, they'll change the name to something else, and it'll be the same as it's been for what Project Blue Book Point 10 will probably be on. You know, so yeah, I'm all for catastrophic disclosure. I think that is the only way we're going to get anything. You know, we need more of these whistleblowers to come out. You know, if our friends Jeremy and Corbell and George Knapp have a list of these whistleblowers, they need to start reeling these people out and just keep hitting and hitting and hitting.
Yeah. We just don't need another Jason Sands to come forward. No, that's all.
No.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get on to the story. So, fast tracking to a bunker in Montana. You know where this is going, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Kirkpatrick investigated another mystery that stretched back 60 years. In 1967, Robert Salas, who's been on the show several times in the past, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker manning the controls of 10 nuclear missiles in Montana. He was prepared to launch apocalyptic strikes should the Soviet Union ever attack first, and got the call around 8 p.m. on one night from a guard station above. A glowing reddish-orange oval was hovering over the front gate, not over the missile silos, over the front gate. Salas told Kirkpatrick's investigators. The guards had their rifles drawn, pointed at the oval object, appearing to float above the gate. A horn sounded in the bunker, signaling a problem with the control system, and all 10 missiles were disabled. Now, Salas soon learned that a similar event occurred at other silos nearby. Were they under attack? Salas never got the answer. The next morning, a helicopter was waiting to take Salas back to base. Once there, he was ordered to never discuss the incident. Salas is one of 5 men interviewed by Kirkpatrick's team who testified as such events in the 1960s and 70s. While sworn into secrecy, the men began sharing their stories in the 90s in books and documentaries. Kirkpatrick's team dug into the story and discovered a terrestrial explanation. Somehow, I'm not surprised. The barriers of concrete and steel surrounding America's nuclear missiles were thick enough to give them a chance if first hit by a Soviet strike, but the scientists at that time feared the intense storm of electromagnetic waves generated by the nuclear detonation might render the hardware needed to launch a counterstrike unusable. So to test this vulnerability, the Air Force developed an exotic electromagnetic generator that simulated the pulse of disruptive energy without the need to detonate a nuclear weapon. When activated, this device, placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, would gather power until it glowed, sometimes a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. Now, Mike, this doesn't sound anything like what we just talked about. There was a craft that came in, was hovering over the guard tower. Then it moved to go ahead and hover over the missile silos.
Correct.
It doesn't sound like it was a scientific test that was going on to see what was going to go on.
No, not at all. Plus, like you said, Bob is a good friend of ours, and he's been on the show several times. We discussed with him at length what happened immediately after this had taken place. He told us that those Minuteman ICBMs that were manufactured by Boeing, they were immediately taken to the manufacturer that did a bench test on them, and they discovered that the logic coupler, which on that technology is the guidance system to the missiles, it was shorted out by negative 10 volts. And these rockets were deep underground. Nothing physically was able to go near or touch or interfere with these rockets. And that was something that they weren't able to explain then or now. What is being described here by Kirkpatrick, this device, would not have that.
Why would only that one little circuit, a little transistor back at the time, Mike, why would only that one little piece be affected? The whole system, if this is what they were actually doing, should have been destroyed.
Well, you're very well aware that if we were to have a coronal mass ejection that hit the Earth at its weakest magnetic shield, and we were to suffer a catastrophic electronic damage from that, it would fry almost any electronic equipment if they used a burst like that.
Yeah, of course.
Describing.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously this explanation of his is complete and total bullshit. And not a shred of truth to any of these claims. And we heard that directly from Bob Salas, who was there. So this is just more horse shit coming out of Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't, but you know what? Bob was a serving member of the military who served at a heightened time in this country of potential nuclear Armageddon with Russia in the Cold War. And this is how he is treated after that type of service, with disrespect to something that he suffered through that was traumatic, and he dealt with it bravely. And now Kirkpatrick is going to shit all over that and come up with this complete horseshit explanation to what may have happened. They're not even saying that's exactly what happened. They're saying may have had something to do with it, because they can't prove this claim either that happened.
No.
I don't remember Bob ever saying that they constructed some sort of a device over the missiles, because they never did. This is a lie, this fucking story. It's bullshit.
It's a cover-up, my friend.
Yeah, where's Tim?
Where's Tim Burchett? You know, about what do they usually say?
We ain't found shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now Kirkpatrick is saying, yeah, we did find something, but it's not what you expect. It's a big cover-up that the government has been orchestrating, and I found out the truth.
Yeah, so Kirkpatrick goes on to say the electromagnetic pulses snake down cables to the bunker where launch commanders like Salas sat, disrupting the guidance systems, disabling the weapons, and haunting the men to this day. But any public leak of the tests at the time would have allowed Russia to know that America's nuclear arsenal could be disabled in a first strike. The witnesses were kept in the dark. To this day, Robert Salas believes he was party to an intergalactic intervention to stop nuclear war, which the government had tried to hide. Well, he's half right. The experience left the octogenarian deeply skeptical of the U.S. military's and the ability to tell truth. Quote, there is a gigantic cover-up, not only by the Air Force, but every other federal agency that has cognized this subject, Robert Salas said in an interview with the Journal. We were never briefed on the activities that were going on. The Air Force shuts us out of any information. Now, concealing the truth for men like Salas and deliberate efforts to target the public with this information unleashed within the halls of the Pentagon itself is a dangerous force, which will become almost unstoppable as the decades pass, which means they've got more they're going to bring out. The paranoid mythology of the U.S. military helps spread now has a hold over a growing number of its own senior officials who count themselves as believers. The crisis grew to a boil over a piece of metal mailed to a late-night radio host in 1996, which the sender said had been told was part of a crashed spaceship. Mike, I knew they were going to the arts parts piece.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Thomas.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So
but we're not unknowledgeable about this subject.
No.
We work closely with Falcon Space, who was in possession of some of Art's parts. And we know the work that's being done. This bullshit story that's coming out of the Wall Street Journal and Kirkpatrick, we know firsthand it's complete bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
So this is really a poor attempt, in my opinion. On what's
Not
trying
just
to
that,
pull right
Mike.
now.
We've those samples have been analyzed. They're not created out of alloys or minerals. They're actually created out of isotopes, which is completely different than what we've got here. More so, the materials are created at an atomic level in anti-gravity, they suppose, to where layer after layer is laid down. And we've tried to figure this stuff out. We've tried to go ahead and actually recreate this. But the problem is, as I've said many times, the materials delaminate and pull away from each other. So we understand this. We understand how this stuff potentially works, but we lack the material science to recreate any of it. Now, the Wall Street Journal isn't done, Mike. They say stay tuned for part 2.
Right. Yeah, there's more horse shit coming. Thanks to Susan Goff and Kirkpatrick.
And then some.
But absolutely. But Jay Stratton, who was at SCU, he put out a statement, and you and I went over it. He confirmed everything you just said. We have a working understanding of this technology, but we just can't manufacture it. We don't have that capability. So, this story is complete and total horseshit. And as you are well aware of, we put out a rebuttal to this earlier today on X, formerly known as Twitter, to address a lot of these concerns. This is propaganda that is being aided and abetted by mainstream media outlets like the Wall Street Journal that seem to have their own political agenda on behalf of the government and the Pentagon. It's a hit piece. It's a smear campaign. It is something that leaves a bad taste in anybody's mouth that has any type of a working knowledge on this subject. It's an insult to people like Bob Salas, David Fravor, David Grush, Matthew Brown, everybody and anybody who's been involved and have come forward publicly testifying to what they acknowledged, to what they experienced. So this is something that I don't think should be tolerated by the public.
No, it shouldn't.
There should be a huge pushback.
We do have a request, though, because every time we say RO, we're supposed to say Charo. So let me go ahead, because it rhymes with it. And people are asking in the audience for it. Let me go ahead and play it. It's one of our classic clips. There we go. Classic Charo. Classic Arrow, for that matter. If we can, we also just got another super chat that just came in, coming from FaZe Will. Thank you very much, FaZe Will. Appreciate your ongoing love and support of everything we do here at Disclosure tonight. Yeah, we're a fan-funded program, and we're very thankful for your support of what we do here. At least someone likes what we're doing, Mike.
Yes, yeah, no, that's a good thing. Will is a good guy.
Oh, he's a wonderful gentleman and a scholar in soccer.
Yes, sir, he is. Absolutely.
Oh, what an interesting Saturday, to say the least. You know, we're always cutting the edge a lot of times, waiting for stuff to come out, saying, what the hell are we going to talk about next? Okay, we're not talking about the beluga sphere for a reason. We could be talking more potentially about what's... Moose, upstairs. Go on. There he goes. Yeah, it was one of those things that we're getting into and just keep on covering what we can, because disclosure is what we cover here at Disclosure tonight, Mike.
Yeah, I know. We also cover all the bullshit that seems to come our way with it as well. So it's disappointing, because this is why people get frustrated with this topic sometimes.
Yeah.
They get switched back and forth with what's true, what's not true. And when propaganda like this comes out and tries to discredit openly everything that people are aware of, it's insulting.
Yeah.
And frustrating.
You know, interesting enough, Mike, this story came out at the same time, same day, about in the same time that Jay Stratton, who's the former head of the UAP task force, was giving a speech over at the SCU about this main topic. Let me go ahead and cover a short piece of what Jay Stratton had said at SCU. Let me go ahead and bring this up. Here we go. All right, let's do it. This is just yesterday, June 6, 2025. We are not the only game in town. It turns out there was another, a much larger, deeply hidden, and long-standing UAP program underway, and they had no interest in sharing what they knew with us. I'm not going to get into specifics of that hurdle today, because I'll probably put it out in my book. But to suffice to say, it was extremely frustrating to be investigating UAP, trying to address a serious national security concern, while knowing that others inside my own intelligence community and military service had knowledge about the very questions that we were asking. They weren't sharing them. They were supposed to be one of the same team, but they weren't. So we continued to push forward on our own the best we could, driven by mission despite the institutional barriers standing in our way. Our mission was broad. But if I could really quick, Mike, we just got a couple super chats in. How about that? Thank you, audience. We appreciate your love and support. Firefly is saying love, Charo. And then Gerald Rosenthal says, great work as always, cutting through the signal to noise ratio. But how about that? How about that, Mike? We've got some words from Jay Stratton, and it sounds like, unfortunately, he's holding back the real information until his book comes out. Right. Oh, boy.
I know. We have.
Why is it that people who have the information have to put it in a pay-for-play movie or put it out in a book?
I don't know. You and I never agreed with that type of approach, and we never will.
Yeah.
If you're going to claim to be an advocate for truth and transparency, by all means, please bring it out sooner rather than later.
Yes. Andy,
right, but they never seem to do that.
Andy, your thoughts? You have your hand up?
Yeah, I think that's what this subject always suffers with. The grifters and the trust me bros, and like you say, there's always a book.
You mean like the Ashton grifters? I think, or just the grifter? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll say yeah. There's just it's always behind a paywall. We've got our friend, name's slipped me now. No, name's gone. But yeah, we've got so many people now. They're moving all their stuff behind the paywall. it's all being locked down. You got to give money towards these people, and yeah, just there's no paywall on this show.
No,
we do it for the love of it. I can honestly say, there's never been any money exchanged for any of us in this show, and Thomas does a wonderful job. But yeah, a lot of people are locking down, and I can only speak on my behalf. We're going to do this on everybody's behalf. Given our own time, being part of the show, and yeah, I just wish more people that would not lock it down behind a paywall. So
yeah. I hear you.
I want to laugh, Andy. Even this Wall Street Journal article that came out the other day, it too is behind the paywall. Believe it or not.
Mike, run with this for about 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Yep. Sure.
Yeah.
So, no, you're right about the paywall angle. It seems to come up all the time. And even with a hit piece like this, they still expect us to pay for it. It's not free.
Well, the name that slipped me that's now come to mind is our friend Dr. Greer. He's now locking all of his stuff behind the paywall. Not as though he wasn't charging enough in the first place. Good on him if he can charge however much for people to come and view. I'm obviously not as intelligent as he is, because I'm still working 12-hour days. I need to find a way to get on the grift. No, I wouldn't. I'd never do that. But yeah, it's just, like you say, everything is being locked down behind a paywall. It's just, if this story's behind a paywall, actually, that's a good thing, I think, because, how many people are actually going to pay to read this tripe?
Well, all it takes usually is for one person to get through the paywall and then bring that information out past the paywall, and therefore the information is out, but they're not necessarily getting paid for it in the way that they had intended. So there's ways around it.
Yeah, there's ways around it. We all know this article, this news article, if you want to call it that, is absolute bull crap. So yeah, it's they deserve not to make any money on it. But then again, on the flip side, we don't really need that tripe out in the world for people to see, because they'll take that and read it as verbatim. So
yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, really.
Well, the other part of that sword, Andy, is that Thomas and I make points equally for the other side of the fence as well in this topic, and that is that if anybody has information that they want the public to know because they strongly feel that the public has a right to know, then they should bring it out all at once. And they don't seem to do that either from time to time. And Thomas and I usually call that out every time we see that occurring. I don't agree with that either. If you're going to bring the truth out, then please, by all means, bring it out. Don't make it into a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And something we need to turn into like a soap opera.
Yeah, we've got so much of this. I'm sorry. I know you've worked with him, but Ross Coulthard brought out the cliffhanger for the massive crowd. I'm sorry, Ross, if you ever get to see this. Credibility, mate, is going down the.
I know, but I asked ChatGPT about that. What do you call a reporter who makes the story about himself, where he has information that he has, but he won't disclose where it's coming from, and he drops it all the time? You know what ChatGPT called him out as?
Go on.
Narcissistic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, I've had a glass of whiskey and I could actually say that word.
Thank you, narcissistic. I can't even say it now, God, man. Oh, talk about narcissistic. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with my mouth this morning? But either way, Mike, we got Matthew here. You know Matthew? That's Matthew Brown.
Yes, sir, it is.
Replied in a tweet of "You're welcome." And what was he who was he replying to? A space run by Red Panda Koala. Oh no.
Our old friend.
No one told him who read Panaquala or Tupacabras. I hope he doesn't make the same mistakes Rick made.
Not good.
Oh no, that's a bad thing. Someone needs to frickin' let Corbell know to let Matthew know. No, don't go there.
No, I have a direct line around Corbell.
Yeah,
let him know what's. I'm going to have to do that after the show.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is not good.
I had to throw that in my bookmarks because it was one of those things you see. It's like, where's the cast iron pan to hit yourself on the face and say, don't.
Yeah, no, that's awful. I didn't know that. When did this get posted?
Today. Actually, that was, God. I believe that was yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
okay.
I've got.
I'm gonna have to let him know what the hell is going on.
Well, in drone news, we all interested about drones, right? And we know about the military and the nuclear missile bases and the nuclear power plants, and even a place where we store the nuclear material, like nuclear waste and all that stuff. Even for medical, has been besieged by UFOs going back in perpetuity for as long as those locations have been there. Well, I've got a new one. President Trump actually did something without bringing in Lou Elizondo as a UASR, Mike. Let me get to it. Here we go. President Trump's decisive action to secure U.S. drone dominance through H.R. 1386 is a strategic masterstroke. This bill empowers the State Department to detect, intercept, and neutralize hostile drones threatening American facilities. We get to it. Exactly the kind of proactive defense needed in an era where rogue actors exploit cheap drone tech. Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb proved that drones can cripple even the hardened targets, but America's approach isn't reactive. It's about maintaining overwhelming superiority. So look at this. Got another super chat came in. Thank you very much, Beg and Bet, saying in a wonderful world of bullshit where you don't know what is true or clickbait, Disclosure tonight is the only place to be. Love you guys. Thank you very much, Megan. We love your super chat. Thank you very much, girl. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Alice, your hand is up.
Yeah, isn't this about the same thing they had before? Because in this one, you have to wait until they prove that they're hostile also, right? So that's
well, if hostile means they come over our bases at this particular point, that was what would be considered hostile.
Okay. Thank you.
Corporal Abe, your hand is up on this.
So the task force gives the ability for local law enforcement to shoot drones down. But I wanted to know from like Mike and Sergeant Daniel, is this a good idea if local law enforcement is engaging with drones?
Well, it says it empowers the State Department to detect, intercept, and neutralize hostile drones. It doesn't say it gives the states the ability and local law enforcement to go ahead and do that. Potentially if they got it from the State Department, but it sounds like this is an executive action.
I got a different link. And that link suggests that local law enforcement is going to be the one that's going to be combating drones. That was on the Como show with Elizondo.
Right. I guess I need to find HR 1386. All right, so here we go. Let's bring it up. We can get to the actual bill itself. Introduced. Get alerts. I've got the document here coming from the congress.gov. More on the bill, constitutional authority statements, cost estimates. Here's the text. All right. H.R. 1386, to establish a Department of State protection mission relating to unmanned aircraft system and unmanned aircraft. or UAS and unmanned aircraft. Mr. Mills, for himself, and Mr. McCall introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs and to the addition, make this a little bit larger so we can all see it here, Committees on Transportation and Infrastructure, blah, 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 bullshit. Next, a bill to establish the Department of State Domestic Protection Mission related to unmanned aircraft system and unmanned aircraft. Be it enacted by the House, by the Senate, and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress. All right, authority notwithstanding, get past this. The Secretary of State may take authorized appropriate personnel, including the Bureau of Diplomacy security personnel and contractors with assigned duties that include safety, security, or protection of personnel, facilities, or assets to take such actions described in subsection B1 that are necessary to mitigate a credible threat as defined by the Secretary of State in consultation with the FAA. That unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft pose a safety or security of a covered facility or asset. In general, the actions described in this paragraph are the following. A, during the operation of the unmanned aircraft system, detect, identify, monitor, and track the unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft without prior consent, including by means of intercept or other access of a wire communication and oral communication or electronic communication used to control the unmanned aircraft or system. Warn the operator of the unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft, including by passive or active and direct or indirect physical, electronic, radio, and electromagnetic means. Disrupt the control of the unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft without the prior consent, including the disabling of the unmanned aircraft system or unmanaged aircraft by intercepting, interfering, or causing interference with wire, oral, electronic, or radio communications used to control the unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft. So it sounds like they want to go ahead and take it down. I'm not hearing, they're talking about direct or indirect physical. So that's to warn the operator. This is to disrupt. Next one is to seize or exercise control of the unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft, to seize or otherwise confiscate the aircraft for reasonable force to disable, damage, or destroy the unmanned aircraft or system. Also, they want to give research, testing, training, and evaluation. Notwithstanding, Secretary of State shall conduct research, testing, training, and evaluation of any equipment, including any electronic equipment, to determine its capability and utility prior to the use of any such technology for any prescribed action. Basically meaning we want to have this technology. We want to go ahead and evaluate it ahead of time and make sure it can do what they're saying it can do. Personnel, including contractors who do not have duties that include the safety, security, or protection of people, facilities, or assets, may engage in research, testing, training, and evaluation pursuant to this section. Coordination. The Secretary shall coordinate procedures governing research, testing, training, and evaluation of carrying out any provisions of the sections with the administrator of the FAA before initiating such activities, so the administrator may ensure the activities do not adversely impact or interfere with safe airport operations, navigation, air traffic services, or the safe and efficient operation of the national airspace system. Forfeiture. Any unmanned aircraft system or unmanned aircraft described in subsection A that is seized by the Secretary of State is subject to forfeiture to the United States pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 46 of Title 18 United States Code. Let me bring this back a little bit more. Regulations and guidance. I'm not seeing anything here with regards to local governments.
Does forfeiture mean that someone outside of the government has to forfeit whatever they were to bring down?
No. Forfeiture is they are forfeiting the person who is operating the drone of the particular technology. So this seems like it's a federal movement, and it's going to be handled by the Secretary of State, which would be Marco Rubio, and their offices all within federal. Now, they're going to go ahead and say, we've got craft that are coming in like this. This is the kind of stuff they're doing. They're going to lock it down with the FAA ahead of time, and then when any of those particular lines have been crossed, they can move in and take this stuff down. Mike, I think this is something we've been waiting for a long time. Go ahead, Abe. I'm sorry.
Because of the situation that we were dealing with back when you were broadcasting like every day with the drones, how then can they utilize federal assets to track down all these drones if that were to happen again? They would have to rely on local law enforcement in order to do something, right?
Right now, as it stands, the way the legislation is written, the only thing that the law enforcement would do is track and identify and notify the federal authorities of these objects and their presence.
Okay.
I don't see any authorization to act or take them down.
They're talking about communications are not disclosed outside of the Department of State unless the disclosure would support the Department of Defense, federal law enforcement, intelligence, and or security, or a state, local, tribal, or territory law enforcement agency. They're not saying they're going to be involved in bringing this down. This sounds like, Mike, a federal action would be going in play to deal with this stuff.
It would be, and if that's the case, then I would assume it would be authorized the local military, the state's militias, wherever these drones are occurring, to take direct action.
Yeah.
That's what the Secretary of State has authority to do.
Yeah. So they're going to mobilize the National Guard, which is going to cost the states millions.
No, there's going to be a contingent in the military that is going to be trained to specifically deal and target these types of objects. They're not just going to send mobilizing the entire National Guard to go out there. Because if you're not trained and you don't have the necessary equipment to deal with these drones, like we saw when they were over New Jersey, it's not going to accomplish anything. There's going to be a lot of training and technology they're going to work on.
Is this acknowledgement of a non-state actor deploying drones over U.S. airspace, or is this acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomenon or craft or drones?
They've used UAS or drones. They haven't had the term one UAP within this whatsoever. Because let's be honest, if they're going to try and bring some of this down with anti-drone technology and they're trying to use it on a UAP, it ain't going to do anything, Abe.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at when I was saying, like, what does Sergeant Daniel and Mike think about local law enforcement trying to bring down, or whatever authority trying to bring down a UAP with just law enforcement equipment? I don't think that's a great idea.
Right, and it sounds.
You have to,
Go ahead, Mike.
You have to understand that law enforcement has very strict training, which is consistent. It's not like once you get trained once and then never again. There is consistent, regular training that takes place. Now, we're talking about a specialized object like these drones. There's going to be specialized units within law enforcement that are going to be properly trained and have the equipment necessary to perform the functions that they're tasked with dealing with in case of an occurrence of these drone incursions that we've already experienced here. That's my understanding of it. Daniel, you're more than welcome to pick up where I left off.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't jeopardize anybody's, physical safety, or the only way they're going to be able to fire on those things is if they can actually justify they were in risk of actual physical safety, or they're trying to save someone. I mean, that thing would have to be landing on someone or trying to hit someone, or I couldn't even imagine the scenario where they would allow a deputy or something to take it down with a shotgun. But I mean, anybody could take one down as long as you can justify that it was a danger to you or others, but that's going to be a hard thing to do if you don't know what it is.
And what I like about this as well is they're talking about this and reflects to a national airspace system, not just the areas that are going over military bases or over nuclear power plants or nuclear bases, whatever we've got out there. This goes anywhere across our national airspace, Mike.
It does. But as you and I are both well aware of, while these drone incursions were taking place, we even had a 60 minutes interview by a military general that said, we don't know how to track these objects, and we don't know where they're coming from or where they're going to, and we don't know how to take them down over populated areas. It's been a problem the whole time. I don't hear the federal government has finally come up with a solution to this, because if they did, I'm sure they would be talking about it. I haven't heard anything. I don't think they have. I think they're trying to pass this legislation before they have the actual capabilities of dealing with this, potentially. That's what it looks like to me, in my opinion. What do
So
you think?
is this disclosure of our airspace is breached and we've got a non-state actor or a state actor like pulling a Pearl Harbor on the United States, or is this disclosure of UFOs? What are they saying by this bill?
Neither. The bill doesn't specify any particular object or powers that be. All it is identifying the new legislation that targets objects of unknown origin that are committing incursions over the United States airspace. That's all this legislation is doing. It's not offering any explanations. It's not even giving us any insight to any new technology capabilities that would be necessary to address these issues if it is ongoing or occurs again. And I don't see that either.
Kind of get what it gives, Mike, is the ability to go ahead and take these craft down that our government and our country has been refrained from.
Up until now.
Yeah.
This new legislation would open the door for the next incursions, when and if they occur, to be dealt with in a more specific manner. That's what this legislation is for, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if it passes. And then if it does, we'll see if there are additional incursions, how they're going to handle it. Because I don't think they have the technology to do that yet.
No. And they're calling it specifically unmanned aircraft and unmanned aircraft system, a UAS or a UA, have meanings, and those given in the terms of Section 44801 of Title 49 of United States Code. So they're limiting it down to what it could be. Now, they could say a UAP could be potentially UAS, because that's what seems like they're doing a lot of times. But either way, now we have the ability to go ahead and take this stuff down, which is, why we haven't been. If there were drones going over Chinese air bases, do you think they would let them stay up there, Mike? Or over Russia's?
Oh my God, no.
Oh.
Yeah, but can the Chinese do better than Langley did? And they went over and they didn't manage to bring anything down over Langley. So
yeah, but they wouldn't be crippled letting it go on for days, if not weeks, where they're going to be so strong where they're going to take all of the aircraft and move it down to another air base because they're letting it be crippled. I'm sure if something like that was going on over China, they'd be taking out whatever defensive armories they have to take it down. We're acting like a bunch of frickin' pussies, honestly. We're acting like a bunch of people who are afraid of dealing with this stuff. We need to get away of being afraid of hurting someone's feelings or accidentally taking down someone's drone because it is where it doesn't belong. If you're over a military base and you don't belong there, this means we're going to take your craft down, and that's where it should be. If you can't drive in there with a car, why can you drive over the fence with a drone?
You shouldn't be able to.
Right.
I agree with you.
And they're starting to take this topic a lot more seriously after the Ukraine attack with Operation Spiderweb to Russia. Now they're realizing they could lose almost all of their military assets on the ground, and there's not a damn thing they could do to stop it. So they have to pass legislation of this type. Otherwise, we'll be deaf, dumb, and blind the next time we have an issue like this that pops up, in my opinion. So we'll see if the legislation passes.
That's why we need transparency on who it is exactly that these drones that happened over the course of the last year belong to. Because without that, we're still deaf, dumb, and blind.
Oh, you mean the authorized drones from the FAA? Those drones?
Yeah, whatever those were.
Yeah, you need to ask President Trump about that.
And what
days later?
And what does he say?
We ain't found shit.
Is about where we're at on that one.
Yeah, that's what the FAA told Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey when he asked.
Oh yeah,
that was their exact response. So Yep.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's a bullshit alert is what it is, Mike.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like it to me.
Yeah. Oh, and guess what? A little bit of science news here. Chewing gum has actually been found to be a major source of microplastic exposure. Go figure.
No kidding.
A single stick of gum can release up to 3,000 plastic particles into saliva and into your body within the first 2 minutes of chewing.
That doesn't sound good to me.
Oh, heck no. Something else we've heard about China's new next generation fighter that has a cockpit for two people going in front of it. Well, guess what? We got a picture of it.
I saw that finally.
Yeah. Interesting enough to see what's going on.
That's a big, heavy beast, looks like to me.
Yeah, well, that would be a long-range beast, my friend.
It does.
Yeah.
That's a serious piece of hardware.
Oh, you better believe it. Oh, yeah. We're going to need something to counter that one, I tell you.
In the back, I'd like to ask Ed, if he's available, as a pilot, what his opinion is of the Chinese J-36 dual cockpit fighter, if he's read up anything on it, and what his take on it is. Ed, are you there? Are you still around, Ed?
He's there, just not. He's muted right now.
When you get a chance, and if you hear this, come in. We'll talk. If not, we could do it in the back chat.
Yeah,
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
We got you
right now. All right, good. Good to hear you, Ed. So, what's your take on this new stealth 6th generation fighter of China's?
I really don't have a thought on it. I haven't been following the developments coming out of China on their aircraft. Other than it's probably something they stole from us, which means we probably got something that looks just like it that we don't know about.
You know what I'm curious about? The cockpit configuration. Why is it side by side on their fighters as opposed to front to back? Does that make sense to you, Ed?
Well, if you just look at the whole the shape of the fuselage is pretty wide, so I guess that would explain that. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's odd.
Yeah.
It's menacing. I could tell you that. And they already have it on the ground and flying around. We don't yet. We're still working on.
Yeah, we're still working. Well, actually, the F-47, they already have prototypes up in the air, and they've had them up in the air for the last 5 years, apparently. But ours isn't a side-by-side cockpit, but it's still an advanced aircraft, to say the least.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Boondoggle.
Oh, yeah. Is there anything we haven't covered today, my friend?
No, I think we actually covered a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Big conversation, a lot of things that were going on. It was fun.
Oh, you better believe it, my friend. I want to go ahead and thank everybody for coming out to today's show. More importantly, come on, start it. I want to go ahead and thank everybody for your wonderful super chats today, for your ongoing support of everything we do here at Disclosure tonight. I want to thank Anonymous Rex and FaZe Will. Come on. And Firefly and Jared Rosenthal and Banana Bowie, and of course, Megan Betts. Thank you all for your love and support of everything we do here at Disclosure tonight. I want to thank the audience for coming out. Thank the people in the back who have been here. Mike, I appreciate your participation and being here with me on the show.
Oh, anytime. You know that, Thomas. Yeah. It was fun tonight. And, thank you for putting this all together. Everybody.
Absolutely. And as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure tonight, eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everybody, but...
Go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. Love you. I'll come back now here. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.